are for June 30th, 2026. We've got a Colorado primary tonight. And we're back at it, doing another live stream. It's been a few weeks. You never know when they're going to happen, but we're doing one today, and polls are closing in 9 minutes. And Colorado, blue state, but still a little bit of action here in the primary. Got a poll up here for who's going to be the nominee for the Dems. Turns out pretty good battle going on here between Phil Weiser and Michael Bennet, the current U.S. Senator there. It's an open seat, and a little bit more than just that race. A couple in the U.S. House. We'll get to all that shortly. And just want to welcome everybody in here because didn't get to do a stream for a few weeks. But we're going to do one today. Then there's a bit of a gap without any primaries. I'm not sure when the next stream will be, but we are doing it right now. Brian Chavez, nice to see you in here already. Okay, got a notification. That's good to hear that you made it in here. But yeah, we didn't do the couple streams. Last one we did was at the beginning of the month. Now we're at the end. And the poll here we've got 60% think Bennett's going to be the nominee, only 5 votes. So not really convincing. But Bennett and Weiser, pretty good showdown here. We've got the U.S. Senate here, John Hickenlooper, the incumbent. He's looking to become the nominee again. We've got the first district here. This is where there's some down ballot action. Progressive challenger here to Diana DeGette. This is super blue territory, kind of like what happened in New York. Whoever wins this, they're going to be winning it in November. So we'll see what happens here. Should be exciting. Only one state, but easier to follow. And again, yeah, you might not think there's action here, but there is. Dems are trying to figure out what direction they're going to go in some of these races. Progressives, Democratic Socialists, they're having momentum, it seems, especially after the New York results. And you're endorsing Phil Weiser? Gotcha. Weiser is the Attorney General, and he's coming after Bennett. Bennett, of course, going to have some higher name ID, and it looked like Weiser was not really going to win it up until recently. It flipped. We could try to pull that up here. Let's see. See if we could get the polling. Here it is. Look at this. Bennett was sitting here in the 80s a month ago, and just a week ago, he was at 71. All of a sudden, look at that. Boom. Weiser, 83%. Totally flipped. It, like instantly came out of nowhere. So this is kind of an upset in the sense of this looked totally improbable a few weeks ago. So Bennett, he's going to have to, I guess, stay in the Senate. He's got a couple of years left. But somebody's going to replace Jared Polis, the Democrat. He's finishing up 2 terms. That's all wrapped up. And after he did that pardon with Tina Peters a month ago or whenever that was, that kind of fired up other Democrats on his way out. He did that pardon. Weiser, I know he came out totally against it. I'm not sure what Bennett said. He's probably against it too. I think almost everybody is. So Polis, he's his popularity did take a dip. I'm not sure what it's at right now, but okay. Phil Weiser because he's anti-establishment, less establishment friendly than Bennett. Yeah, that's fair enough. But I don't know how different he is on policy. I don't know how far he came out on certain issues. My impression is he's a little bit to the left of Bennett, but there's not a huge gap. Home state. So that's good to hear. Always like to get people in the chat, in the stream, where it's their home state. So what are you watching here? What races? What do you think? What's going on here? You should know the state pretty well, unless you just moved there. Yeah, that flip in the markets was nuts. That's why the markets, they'll only go so far. They'll only take you so far, I should say. Plenty of times, something at 75, 85%, it just stays there and that's it. But sometimes it flips. It's not totally unheard of. A lot, this is why when I make a prediction video, I always say this is tough to do because so much could change in a month or certainly 3 or 4 months. So it's really tough to put out a confident prediction, but we'll see. 26 year of anti-establishment candidates. Kinda. Uh, I mean, I would think more incumbents would have gone down so far, and I would think there'd be a little bit more. I mean, I'm thinking 2010, that Tea Party wave. That was I'd have to look and see how many incumbents were defeated, but that was one where it was just clear that there was a big wave that it was about to hit, and it did hit. And it would be interesting to see how many incumbents went down in the House and the Senate and governor, maybe, if there were any. But yeah, is this going to be a blue Tea Party type wave? And then what happens after that? I mean, if you just go back to the recent history, the last 15, 20 years, Democrats had great years in 2006 and 8, and it looked like Republicans, they were on the ropes. They weren't going to be able to really do anything. And then, of course, then 10 happened, and they completely changed the whole dynamic. I mean, they were back. They took control of Congress, and but then, of course, that didn't mean a whole lot because Obama came back and won it in 12. Then Republicans came back in 14. It really, it's really easy to get caught up in the moment and think things are gonna kind of just stay the same. But you're lucky to get 4 years of the same thing happening. And we're about 20 seconds away here from some poll closing. Um, Actually, yeah, it's just one state, so it's just going to be right here in Colorado. And this is mostly mail in ballots. I don't know how quickly this is going to go, but I'm anticipating not doing a long stream. We might be out of here in 40 minutes because I cannot do a super long one. Hopefully, they do wrap it up, but we'll see what happens with a mail in state here. Hopefully, a change happens in the markets in the 26th Senate race and Railroad Commission race. Oh, I haven't looked at that Railroad Commissioner race, but I did look at the Senate race, and it's Paxton with a bit of a lead. I think it was around maybe 10 to 15%. So it's an edge, and I mean I agree with that. I mean Republicans are going to be favored there, not a ton, but at least a little. But who knows what'll happen again in 3, 4 months? Yeah, I mean the Dem dream of a blue Texas. We've been hearing about it forever. I mean, could happen, but I mean it's not as red as it used to be. That's for sure. States change, and it did almost flip blue in 18. You know, with Cruz and O'Rourke. It was a close race, but 2 years ago, Ted Cruz came back. And back in 18, even though when Cruz squeaked it out, I think it seemed like in 6 years he'd be highly vulnerable. And a couple of years ago, he wasn't. I mean, it seemed like he was more vulnerable in the polling, but he kind of coasted. And who knows what'll happen in another 4 years if Cruz runs again from now. But there's just no way to predict what kind of environment it's going to be. And you know, I've said this a lot, but if Harris were in the White House, this would be looking like probably a red type of wave. Maybe not a big one, but at least way redder than it looks right now. Republicans would probably flip some governor's mansions and probably hold the House. There's no way to tell, but if it was a red wave, oh, we wouldn't even be thinking about Alaska or Iowa or Ohio, any of those. Could easily have flipped Georgia back if Brian Kemp, maybe he would have ran if Harris were in the White House. It's tough to have power and to keep power. That's the trick. Everybody wants to get it, but as soon as you get it, you got a target on your back. Okay, so we're waiting for results to come in here. Hopefully it happens. Polls have closed. I wish every state could count like Florida. You grew up and you lived in Colorado all your life. It's deep blue. Well, I don't know how old you are, but I mean, it did used to vote Republican pre Obama. They've had not always a Democrat for governor. They've had Cory Gardner in the Senate. And for president, you know, you used to vote red, depending on how far back you're going to go. But of course, yeah, in the last decade and a half, it's pretty blue. Although Hillary did win the state by under 5%. I think it was 4.9. So that's not really all that blue. And that was in 16. So it's not California blue. Yeah, I hope the results are done by 9 p.m. I assume we're talking mountain time. That'd be in less than an hour. Or, oh no, that would be in a couple of hours in mountain. But the progressive may win. In the first district, or is Phil Weiser? I guess we're going to consider him the progressive here, maybe. Here we go. Look at this. Boom. Weiser opens up with 65%. And we're getting Denver right off the bat. And we're getting a little bit of west of Colorado Springs here. Let's see if did that affect the market at all. Might have to wait a few minutes, but doesn't look like it yet. And of course, okay, we've got Hickenlooper. Look at this. This is dead even. And it's dead even in Denver County. I would think if Hickenlooper was gonna go go down, he would be losing in Denver. If he's winning in Denver, then he's got to win this thing, I would imagine. And here we go. First district. This is the big one for the U.S. House. Diana DeGette, the incumbent, the more establishment candidate, shall we say. I mean, at one point, she'd probably be viewed as very liberal or progressive or whatever if you go back far enough. But now that in this current environment, this isn't Diana DeGette from 20 years ago. She's been in office for a long time. She's wrapping up 3 decades. So Malad Kuros here is she's coming at her from the left, democratic socialist. Okay, we've got Secretary of State, we've got Attorney General, if this matters at all, by Jenna Griswold, trying to move over to the Attorney General's office. So Phil Weiser, 12% in. He's almost got a 2-to-1 margin. Let's see what we've got here. Paxton, objectively weaker and unfavorable than Cruz. Paxton, um, well, I mean, it's hard to say anybody's objectively weaker because that's kind of a broad category. But I always thought Cruz's weakness was kind of personality wise. He seemed to have, as Bennett with about a 6.5 point gain there, Cruz had likability issues. Paxton has that but in a different way. Paxton just has baggage. Cruz didn't have that kind of baggage. He just kind of seemed kind of smarmy and a little fake, trying too hard, that kind of thing. So, I mean, we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, Beau French in that race. Yeah, he that was mentioned here. Somebody, maybe it was you who mentioned it, but yeah, he. I guess he are those comments he made of coming up now. I haven't followed that. I mean, that's kind of an under the radar race. Railroad commissioner. Florida is fast counting. Clover Finder boy. Oh, you love to have a channel member here. Not a lot of members, but when they're here, it's worth pointing out. So good to see a member in here. And Florida is fast counting because of the 2000 election. Um, I think that's a factor. I don't know. I don't know if in 2004 if they were counting as quickly as today. So if they were counting the same speed then in 2004 as now, then sure. But I would think that there was more going on after that that sped it up even more. Of course, they made changes between 2000 and '04, but yeah, that's be something to actually take a look at. See, at what point did they completely become like the premium vote counting state? But yeah, Florida didn't want to get embarrassed again. Beau French, well, if there's an extreme or a fringe or a controversial candidate that gets nominated in a primary, I mean, it's happening. We're seeing it in different directions. We've seen some of the Democratic Socialists in New York, and to people that don't like them, they're saying the same thing. They're saying, "Hey, I find it baffling that they became the nominee." So some people would say it about Graham Plattner, let's say. There's so much there. And I'm not really baffled by anything anymore. I don't know. Maybe if somebody just committed like violent crimes during the campaign and then still became the nominee, that would probably be surprising. But short of something crazy like that, I think that people are able to just suck up the scandals and just rationalize it, or however, they're voting against the other side or whatever. They want somebody to just really fire up that base. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if the market shifted at all here. Wiser 98. So that's it. This is over. Phil Weiser is going to be the nominee. And yeah, this is a big margin in Denver. It makes sense. I mean, this is where a lot of population is, and this is a giant lead here. So Bennett is going to go down in flames here. I mean, he'll still be in the Senate, but Bennett never a real strong performer electorally. He's kind of scraped by on a couple of wins, and I think his last one was more substantial, but he was never this guy just putting up super impressive numbers. And now here he is trying to come back to the state, and instead it's Phil Weiser. Of course, not called yet here on New York Times. Hickenlooper, decent lead here. And yeah, Hickenlooper really dominating outside of Denver, and he's even leading narrowly in Denver. So this one should be a pretty big blowout. And the get is trailing here. Let's see if. Okay, there's no market here. Well, we'll just have to. We'll wing it. We'll see what happens. Here's the 8th district. This is also kind of an interesting race here to challenge Gabe Evans, the incumbent Republican. This is actually eh, just to brag for 2 seconds. This is one of the races I called correctly 2 years ago. I called Gabe Evans defeating Yadira Caraveo. It was a risky call. Could have gone either way, but I don't know how many other people predicted this one was going to flip. This one I happen to get right. I got plenty of other ones wrong, but this one I got correct. So Gabe Evans is the incumbent Republican, and Manny Rutinel, I think that's how you say it. I think looks like he's probably going to win. He is the more progressive, less establishment candidate. And that's easily a seat Dems could pick up. I would think that they're probably fairly favored to pick that seat up. You wish Jim Wright was renominated. Okay, that's more on the Texas Railroad Commissioner race. We're getting a lot of talk about Texas there, but okay, yeah, Quiros narrowly leading DeGette. Bernie Sanders. Hey, good to see you. As always, it's a pleasure. You got an ad about voting no on Amendment 4 in Missouri. Well, you'll have to refresh me on which amendment that is. I don't want to misstate it, so if there's a chance for the Dem nominee for 26th Railroad Commissioner in Texas to win, the race would have to be nationalized. Yeah, I don't know how much that's not a top tier race, but it could become a big deal. Maybe it just blows over like everything else, right? I mean, think of all the other things that happened. Remember Jay Jones, right? In Virginia? What happened there? Maybe he lost a couple of percentage points, maybe three or four, but he won easily. Kind of surprising, that big of a margin. Okay, let's see. So this is pretty much wrapped up. We'll come back to the first here. Speaking of Grand Plan, did you see the Fox News poll that came out? The race showing Collins up by 3. Yes, I did actually. I saw that about an hour ago, and very interesting. I mean, it's just one poll. That's what I say about everything. But the polls, I think the polling might be stabilizing a bit now. Before, Plattner was easily leading. I think sometimes by double digits. It looked like there was no contest. But now his controversies have kind of settled in, and he's the nominee. Collins, I don't think, has really gone on the attack yet. Maybe she has, but I think they're waiting for that deadline to pass. So Plattner cannot be replaced on the ballot. I think that's coming up in a couple of weeks or so. And it's a close race. Anybody that thought Plattner was just going to win by 10 points, I think that was kind of nuts. But yeah, he's been facing scandals for a long time. But Collins could totally win. But Plattner, it's a bluer state in a blue leaning year. He's totally in it. He's in it to win it. I mean, should be interesting. Maybe it blows over in another 3 months. Plattner, he wins by 7 or 8. It'll be interesting to see what Collins does against Plattner. Malat Quiroz is, yeah, she is leading. Bennett very unpopular in 20, along with Hicken. Oh yeah, I forgot Hickenlooper ran for president. Totally forgot about that. And Bennett, yeah, they both did. That's yeah. I think some people, I probably even have get those guys confused. Just if you're not following closely, it could be the same guy almost. Hickenlooper, when he was governor, he barely won re-election. In 14, he almost lost. So you have to remind yourself that Michael Bennett with a single T, and I made that same mistake earlier. I was like, wait, is there two T's? There's got to be two, right? Turns out there's only one T, if you can believe that. Diana DeGette has two T's, in case anybody confuses those two. And we've kind of stalled out here on 65% of the vote. Here's the third district. Jeff Hurd has a challenge here from Ron Hanks, but this is really not a significant race. Actually, that poll is right here. Now that you mention it, Plattner 47, Collins 50. That kind of did spook the markets. It's super early again. Who knows? I think, yeah, Fox put out that poll showing Sherrod Brown up 8 like a month ago or whatever that was, 3 weeks ago, something like that. And some people, they say Fox and it's just going to be all for the Republicans. And then it's not really the case. Their polling side, some people say that just favors the Dems. So it's actually tough to gauge what's going on with their polling. I guess you could dig into the crosstabs. I don't know what their sample was on independence and the partisan breakdown. But we do have another one. Sienna here put out a tied race here between Paxton and Tallarico. Abbott's up by 7, so kind of a gap there. I would think there's not going to be that much crossover, not to that extent, between Abbott and Tallarico, but there's going to be some. All right, let's get back into Colorado here. Again, I appreciate everybody that's coming by for another stream. It's been a few weeks, and I don't know when the next one will be. So, excuse me, it's always tough to do these sometimes. I wasn't able to do it the last couple, and there's going to be a gap after today. And I have no idea if I'll be able to do anything in July or August, but we're doing this one. We did 6 weeks in a row before a couple of weeks ago, or before, yeah, the beginning of the month. That was the last stream we did, I think. Something like that. Okay. Kevin Aguilar. You forgot about the primary. You're watering your garden. Well, that's seems like a wholesome activity, right? So, but not too late to catch these results where it looks like Phil Weiser has defeated Michael Bennett here. Okay, we've got the Missouri amendment we were talking about. A yes vote will continue for 10 years, 1/10 of 1% sales use tax for soil water conservation and state parks historic sites. Resubmit the voters for approval in 10 years. A no will continue the sales tax. If passed, it will not increase or decrease taxes. Okay, 1/10 of 1% sounds pretty low. That's interesting. That seems like kind of a really niche or niche, if you prefer, type of amendment. I don't think that's going to get a whole lot of attention, but you're astounded how much water a rain barrel can hold. That could be a 55-gallon barrel, possibly. It's probably different sizes. Who knows, right? Okay, so we're talking gardening, we're talking Missouri constitutional amendments, we're talking Texas Railroad Commissioner. And hey, that's all good. We've got one state here, we've got Colorado on the screen. And again, probably not going to be a super long stream here, but we're going to get what we can done. Main Senate race, does a debate planner could be more aggressive? I do. Yeah, I think, first of all, I think there definitely should be multiple debates. It's going to be competitive. There's got to be. Have they talked about debates yet? It might be a little bit too early, but I could see Grant Planter coming out and trying to be pretty aggressive. The thing is, Susan Collins, I know she's not really aggressive. It's hard to really get mad or offended by Collins just by her disposition. She's just she's not really angry. She's not really that offensive. I mean, at least in the obvious traditional sense. You could try to dig into things if you really hate her and say it's offensive that she voted for this or that she supports that. I mean, but that's not what I'm talking about. Let's see. Michael Bennett previously served as the chief of staff for then Mayor John Hickenlooper from '03 to '06. I don't think I knew that. Certainly not off the top of my head. That's interesting. That's not too far before he got into the Senate. Bennett in the Senate. There's another simple, easy rhyme. Hinojosa's lost cause against Abbott. I think the best case is it gets under 6-7, which is better than O'Rourke. I mean, is there's a lot of time left. I mean, it's unlikely, but yeah, I don't think she's going to win. But you never know. Maybe some huge scandal happens. Maybe she has some heroic story where she puts out a fire or something. But yeah, Abbott, he's going for 4 terms. He's just I don't want to say they love him there, but they certainly almost love him there. And yeah, O'Rourke coming in to run for governor, he took a step back there. I mean, he rode that environment in 18. Then he comes back, or he ran for president too, and did zilch. Then he comes in, tries to take down Abbott, and that really went nowhere. So that amendment in Missouri, everybody's talking about that 1/10 of a percent for those for that fiscal issue. That's interesting. But I don't know. Yeah, outside of Missouri, people probably not really going to care too much. But yeah, ballot measures. That's going to be something important to take a look at. California's got a nice slate of them. Are you sure it's Colorado and not Wyoming? Yeah, the states look similar on a glance. I know they probably don't want to be mistaken for each other because they're kind of on opposite ends of the political spectrum. But for a while, they both voted red for a number of elections. Not all of them, but some of them. John Rosenthal is your Texas House representative. Okay. Yeah, fun facts are always good to hear. Usually. Where are we? Wiser. Oh, Clover Finder, boy, you're taking off. Well, it's good that you stopped in here, though. Again, if you're still in here, good to see you, channel member. I appreciate the support again for anybody that also supports the channel. Wiser doing well in the Denver metro area. Absolutely. That's an accurate statement. All right, we're at 50% here. And still no more in Denver, but here we go. Back to the first district. Super close race. I guess it depends on where these votes are coming in. There should be, I know there is a poly market race, or a market, I should say, for this first district. Let me see if I could figure out what it is. Let's see. The first district, okay, Kiros is at 98%. So that kind of spoils everything right there. If DeGette is, well, she's already trailing here, but the markets are saying she has no chance. So that'd be another pretty good pickup there for the Democratic Socialist, the DSA candidate. And DeGette, she's been in there since 1997. Look at that. So that's pretty big stuff. That does remind me of stuff that would happen during the Tea Party wave of where incumbents were going down. That was kind of a political realignment in a sense. But you had longtime incumbents going down. I can't think of the big names off the top of my head, but somebody going down that's been in there for 28 years. I mean, maybe that doesn't even help her that she's been in there for 28 years. If Talrico wins the general and Abbott declines a fifth term, I hope Texas is in a position that Georgia is now for governor in 2030. Well, I think if Talrico loses, which is probably a little more likely than not, I think he could. There's no way he's going away. It's just like O'Rourke. It's almost like anybody that has close to an upset. If you're close in a state where you're the underdog, you come back. You're coming back 2 or 4 years later. That's what you do. You try to do it again. So I think Talrico, plus he's super young. I think if he loses, his name is going to be thrown around a ton. If he wins, it'll be thrown around for vice president and president. There's no question. That's what everybody does that in every state. You look at Chris Christie, he won in that blue state, and immediately it was he's got to run for president. That's just over and over that happens. Larry Hogan, he should be president. Charlie Baker should be president. Maybe John Bell Edwards should be president from Louisiana. Just because once you have a crossover minority party winning for governor or even for Senate, if there's an upset, people just think they have to just ride that momentum to the highest office. It'll be interesting to see what Andy Bashir does, if he's going to run and if he's going to get anywhere in a primary where those voters are kind of hungry for something to the left, and that's not Bashir. Your sister was an O'Rourke supporter in 20. She was between him and Buttigieg for president, right? Yeah, that's okay. Gotcha. Hickenlooper made Bennett superintendent of Denver Public Schools. Bennett was the only Coloradan of any profile to endorse Obama and Clinton. Oh, Obama over Clinton in the 2008 primary. Okay, yeah, that's going back a bit. I don't know how many people remember that, but sure. When the Senate seat opened up after Ken Salazar was made Secretary of Interior, Bennett got a reward for his part in Obama. Plus, then Governor Hickenlooper appointed him. Okay, is yeah, Ken Salazar. That's interesting. I think he took down Pete Coors, if I'm not mistaken. He did what, one term in there? And speaking of Colorado names, yeah, you had Ben Nighthorse Campbell, right, who actually died in December. He's probably the legend, right? Elected as a Democrat, turned Republican, elected as a Republican. He did two terms. Just people, I think they love that guy. Well, Democrats probably hate him because he became a Republican. But then, now that that was 2 decades ago and he's dead, I would guess they probably don't have a problem with him that much. Yeah, establishment friendly. Let's see. Let's see what we've got here. 51% in. Hickenlooper, comfortable lead. Nothing else in the first district. Jeff Hurd is the nominee in the third, and the eighth is stuck on 23%. So we got most of our questions answered. I think we've got them all answered on who the nominees are going to be. So we're kind of just waiting on percentages now. Jenna Griswold is the nominee for Attorney General. Amanda Gonzalez is the nominee for Secretary of State. Of course, they have to defeat Republicans in the general, but probably going to be fairly easy to do considering the state and the environment. Charlie Baker would have been a smart Republican nominee for president. Not that he would win Massachusetts in a presidential election, but would be a smart candidate to sway voters. I probably did hypotheticals with Baker 2 or 3 years ago. And yeah, Baker, he'd get closer than anybody else to win in Massachusetts. But yeah, he'd probably still lose it by 12 points or something. I mean, that's just my guess off the top of my head. But I don't know. I think he's probably just way too liberal for Republicans. I don't think he'd be able to win swing states, that kind of thing. Republicans there would just not come out at all. A lot of them. I don't think there'd be a magical suburban boost for somebody like Charlie Baker. And yeah, and as much as Democrats think, you know, Republicans, the base is too extreme. They wouldn't vote for a mild Charlie Baker. Maybe they could over a socialist candidate. You're baffled Bennett decided to run against a popular attorney general. Well, who declared first? That's the question. I thought I thought Bennett did, but maybe I'd have to go back and look. But Bennett is probably going to have a higher name recognition. Now, I don't know how, maybe Phil Weiser is in the news all the time in Colorado, but Bennett is much more well known, I would think. Not that nobody knows who Weiser is. Certainly in the polling, he took a long time to catch up. Bennett looked like, yeah, if this was 2 weeks ago, it was going to be Bennett. But certainly in the months leading up to this, it was an uphill climb for Weiser. And a lot of times, yeah, you do see people try to make kind of a lateral move from governor to Senate or vice versa. But seeing him go down here and he's in office, that is kind of notable in a sense. I don't know how often that's happened. Malat Kiros beating Diana DeGette. Well, going by the markets, that showed it at 98%. Yeah, I have to say so. The people who are really putting their money on the line, they know what's going on, I tend to think. And John Hickenlooper has clinched nomination here. And now we're up to 80% here in the eighth. Manny Rudnell, giant lead. I don't know why this is not called. This is this seems not even remotely close, really. 70% in here, and still 65 in Denver, but right around Denver, it's Weiser still leading, but it's competitive. But out the rural counties, Bennett is in the lead, but of course, not a ton of population in a lot of these counties. But Weiser is still also leading in some of these. So we'll see how far we're going to get here. And it seems like most of this is kind of winding down. But yeah, we can talk about other states, other races, if anybody has anything exciting to mention. Not a whole lot of people in here, but that's okay. Hickenlooper might have one of the most pathetic margins of victory for an incumbent in a primary for Senate. Gonzalez they go for Bennett's seat in 28. Retirement or not? Yeah, I guess that's something to consider. I don't know how strong of a candidate she is, but Hickenlooper again, kind of a pretty household name here. If anybody's going to be, it's got to be Hickenlooper after Jared Polis. Weiser won the nomination according to NBC. Well, I believe it. Did this go down from 70 to 69? Or no, I think this was stuck at 70. Well, you can see here, yeah, Bennett with a very big lead in Pueblo County and it's close in El Paso. But Weiser with a up 10 in Jeffco, as they say. I could be totally wrong. The Fox News poll. What do you think of the one they did for Ohio a few days ago? Is that they did another one a few days ago? Let me see. Is that on here? I don't see it on here. Unless we're talking about that one from a few weeks ago where Brown was up like 8. If that's the one you're talking about, I'd have to go back and try to pull it up, but I'm not seeing it right here. But yeah, a lot of polls came out, I think, today, and getting a little bit here in Maine as well. Looks like a pretty easy time here for Hannah Pingree. But who knows? Maybe they're in the move for some change there. Okay, here's Manny Rutinell, nominee, taking on Gabe Evans. Easily could flip here for the Dems. It's not a guarantee, but it's a viable pickup opportunity. Okay, so that let me go back here. Let's see. Um, we'll be seeing a lot of presidential candidates campaigning around the battleground states. For the upcoming midterms, presidential candidates for 28. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll probably see some. You might see Obama come out for some, and you'll see Trump come out. I guess they're going to have a convention for the Republicans. That's kind of some news today. But yeah, we'll see. I know some of these Dems do want to position themselves as candidates. I know Shapiro's been making the rounds in the news. He's trying to make it known that he's not just some Pennsylvania governor. He could have more to him. I don't know how far that's going to go. He's certainly likable and he's popular in Pennsylvania, but nationally it's a different story. He's not doesn't come off as a fighter, and I think the base is looking for certainly somebody a little bit more progressive, more animating. We call it that Jeffco. Okay, yeah, I recall hearing that a long time ago. I'm assuming it's still happening. So always good to get the local lingo down. Let's see. Weiser and Bennett's numbers match up with how the state votes between both parties in the general. Might be a good indication who voted for who and who appealed to the Democratic base more. Yeah, I suppose so. It's kind of a similar statewide margin. Is Tom Tancredo still? Does he still live there? Is he still in the news? He was always a Colorado name thrown around for a little while there. Always good to bring up notable people from the state. And Roy Romer, former governor, He's now the oldest living governor now. It's late 90s. So that's another fun fact. Okay, the poll from the beginning of June. Yeah, I talked about that I think a couple of times already in the stream. It seems a little bit too much for me to think that Sherrod Brown was going to win by 8 if that's what it was. But it's tough for me to think Brown is just going to win. I mean, that's going to be close, I guess, but I mean, he did just take a loss, Brown, and yeah, the environment is going to favor the Republicans, but then Brown has to come back again in 2 years to defend that seat, even if he won. Might be kind of a rental, which Dems will take anything they can get. But I don't know how if Brown is really if he won. I think he could win, but I think it's I'm not seeing it myself yet. I haven't looked closely because we got so much time to go in these races. But I think the markets have shown that Brown is favored a little, but we'll see. It's just I'm not there yet to think that Brown is favored, but we'll see what happens. You think this night gives progressives like AOC a good case for themselves running for president? Um, I mean, I guess in a sense, when you see these kinds of candidates winning, you'll feel a bit of a boost. Up at this point, I'm not even sure what how AOC runs. I mean, she before was viewed as the progressive candidate, taking down incumbent Joe Crowley, and it was an upset. And then she came in, and she was going to shake things up, but then it kind of fizzled out, and then she endorsed Biden. I mean, that's just whew, that's rough. And then she, like a lot of politicians do, they talk a big game, then they come in and cozy up to the establishment. So she cozied up a little bit. How much is it going to matter? I don't know. And now there's people further to her left coming onto the scene. So she looks less uh, fringe or controversial or however you want to put it in terms of going to the left on her politics. You can see the D side, but for R, can they have people openly campaigning for presidential nomination if the president hasn't given up on the whole third term thing? I don't know if has he talked about that lately. I mean, yeah, I don't think that's really gonna happen. But I mean, yeah, you could see Vance coming out. I don't think you'll see Rubio coming out. I guess if he did, it'd be only in Florida. If Byron Donalds and Ashley Moody were in jeopardy, maybe you see Rubio come out. But I think it'd be Trump or Vance, and I mean those are the obvious top two. But yeah, Republicans have got to get motivated here. They're going to take a beating in November. You think Shapiro will end up becoming the Dem equivalent of John Kasich? All right, possibly. I mean, Kasich did win Ohio though, right? For when he ran, I think he did. Maybe I'm completely. Maybe even. Maybe I've got it all wrong. I forgot about Kasich running in 16. Um, Keep in mind, Colorado independent voters can choose which primary ballots they want to return at the ballot box. Okay, yeah, that's valuable information. So, semi open primary sounds like. The next presidential primaries are an eternity away, but you hope Newsom and Harris don't become the nominees. Yeah, I don't know. Harris, somehow I think she's leading in some of the markets. It's always surprising to me. To me, it seemed like she was not that strong of a candidate. She took a loss. And of course, the name ID is going to be high, but I would eventually think she would fizzle out. So I would think it would be before now, but she she's been leading in a lot of the polls. Let's see. We got any still 65% here, unless this is nope. I don't know why. Nothing else is coming in that specific race. Okay. Colorado is a Udall state. Yeah, I mean, mentioned it a bit earlier, but yeah, Corey Gardner took down Mark Udall in 14. That was kind of a big upset, I guess. It's somewhat of an upset. It did look like it was going to be pretty competitive, but the big GOP pickup. Don't clown on Brown. Ben Nighthorse Campbell. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you missed it. I mentioned that about 20 minutes ago. Where yeah, he was a Democrat, elected as a Democrat, and then be elected as a Republican. He switched, and he did 2 terms, and he won by a massive margin in his reelection. You think he switched parties? What could happen? Yeah, and you talk about Fetterman. Maybe that happens. Be interesting to see what would happen now. Fetterman, if he ran as a Republican, he'd have to get a ton of Republican vote, of course. Not all of it, because some of them would say that he's not a real Republican. And of course, he'd probably get a chunk of the Democrats still. Of course, a lot of them hate him, but he doesn't need to get nine. He doesn't need to get a lot of Democrats at that point. If he just got 15% of Democrats, that'd be huge. But yeah, Fetterman, interesting character for sure. Moving to the seventh party system, more and more Republicans will be like Zach Lane, or Democrats move toward economic populism. All right, yeah. I mean, if cultural populism too, if that was a factor, that would be something I would recommend. Of course, that's a little bit. It's kind of hard to define some of this stuff, but yeah, Zach Lane in Iowa, that's going to be a good race. Republicans might come to a point where they distance themselves from fiscal conservatism because Echelon Insights shows the country, contrary, excuse me, to popular belief, isn't popular as elites say. Yeah, populist economics, I always think, is a winning message. Certainly, them should, that's their top thing they should talk about. If they could back away from some of the unpopular cultural stuff, they'd be they'd clean up, I think. But yeah, this is the year to run on populist economics. I mean, the only I guess the maybe the problem for the Dems is if they're talking about the economy and saying that they should be given a chance. Well, we're just in there 2 years ago. It wasn't like 10 years ago. The Republicans could say, you just did run things, and that's why you got voted out. That's one of the reasons. But in politics, I don't know how long these things last. People really probably don't care a ton about what happened a couple of years ago. There's always exceptions. And Phil Weiser now is the nominee. It's clinched. 77% of the vote in, and he's up by about 9 to 10. So that's that. Hey, we haven't even looked at the Republican side, but I totally, nobody's even mentioned this. Completely forgot about this the last hour. But this is interesting because Victor Marx was supposed to be controversial and it looked like he was going to be the nominee, but now it doesn't. Actually, we should probably here we go. See if the market is here. And it is. So you could see here Victor Marx was at 94, 95% 2 seconds ago. And now he's not going to win. So, yeah, sometimes when a market is in the mid 90s, it does not pan out. I guess he's just too controversial. Barbara Kirkmeyer, who she had a run for Congress herself, she might be the nominee. That gives Republicans a little bit more of a chance, I would think, at becoming the next governor here. But so very interesting stuff. But it's close. It's competitive. Colorado lingo to know. Fort Collins, Greeley, Denver area called Front Range. Bobert's district. Yeah, we haven't mentioned her today either. Called Eastern Plains. Hertz district called the Western Slope. All right, I might remember some of that. The OOF Biden endorsement. But who are we talking about here? I'm lost on the Biden endorsement thing. Unless is this back to the AOC thing? This isn't a defense of Biden, but if you're running a Democratic primary, those voters aren't anti-Biden as a general population. Fetterman will probably be gone by about the 2030s. Similar to what happened with Cinema. Well, she was one and done, so Fetterman. I mean, remember that debate with him and Dr. Oz? That thing was wild. It looked like that's why I thought Pennsylvania would go to Oz with it. I had it at a tilt rating. I'm pretty sure 4 years ago, but Fetterman really he looked awful in that debate, but he didn't matter. He won. He'd be get Arlen Specter by someone like Scott Perry. Yes, Specter did the party switch, also from that state. What do you believe the Dems need to do better with rural voters and vice versa with the GOP doing better with urban voters? Well, that's a important question, but it's one I can slightly answer, and I think rural Democrats should take on a lot more Republican cultural positions, and it should be authentic. They shouldn't force it. You should just get Democrats in there that they are into some of the Republican immigration policies and stuff like that. And of course, they should also maintain the economic populism. Healthcare, it's totally massive. Everybody should be talking about that. And Republicans in the urban areas, I, it depends on which kind of Republican, but some of them they'd have to tone down some of their cultural issue positions. But I think they got to just stop talking about tax cuts, talk up more economic populism. Again, healthcare be huge. You go into an urban area, you say, "Hey, I'm a Republican, but I want to get you that healthcare. I want to get you some increased minimum wages, paid family leave, child daycare, pro union positions, stuff like that." Basically, I think these parties have got to, in those areas, they've got to kind of just take the position of the other side on a lot of things. Not all of it, but at least a good chunk of it. Now, is that going to work? It depends. It's probably not going to actually do a lot because at first people wouldn't know what to do. They'd go, wait, this guy's like half running as a Democrat or half running as a Republican. And they would just rather vote for the full Democrat or full Republican instead of somebody who has a lot of crossover views. But over time, I think that it could start to matter once you go through a couple of different political environments. But yeah, if Democrats were where they were culturally 15 years ago in the rural areas, that's kind of what that's I think a big reason why I think a lot of the rural counties moved away from the Dems. Some of them already were, of course, very red, but the ones that voted for Obama even two times, a lot of it I think is cultural. I don't think that's really a bold statement. I think a lot of people would come up with that, but the cultural stuff that the Dems got into the past 1 to 2 decades, I think that's probably off-putting for a lot of those voters. And even if they're not thrilled with the Republican positions on all the economic issues, I think the cultural side is probably going to give them. There's going to be enough appeal in those the rural counties. 65% still in this first district. Okay, let me try to get caught up here on any comments. Actually, there's not a whole lot here. I wonder if Fetterman would be like the Pat Toomey sort of Republican, where he's predicted to lose, but somehow snags on by a thread. I think that's got to be hangs on. I'm gonna go with hangs on. Uh, Toomey was a tough one to get out. Yeah, Toomey and Katie McGinty in 16. Yeah, Republicans holding that seat there. It was competitive. It didn't look like Toomey was screwed, but it looked like, you know, he could go down with presidential turnout. That's what was surprising. With that turnout, Republicans holding that seat. And then Toomey, of course, retires. Then that seat flips. And then Dave McCormick comes in and flips the other seat. So both seats flipping in back to back elections. That's good stuff. Elliott County, Kentucky. Yeah, that was one that held on forever, voting blue. And they finally switched. I think they voted for Bashir for governor. Um, Toomey and Sestag. Yeah, that's true. I think Sestag actually, I think he barely won his primary, right? I'd have to double check that. Because then we're getting back into the Arlen Specter stuff. But yeah, Sestak was supposed to be this guy who was going to win, and he didn't, and it was close. And that was during that big Republican wave. So yeah, Sestak and Specter. Yeah, okay, it was about a 7 point race. Now that I look it up, so close, but not extremely close. But yeah, there we go. We're covering a lot of territory, a lot of different races, different states. It's always fun to do, especially because we haven't done a stream in a few weeks. But I think we pretty much got all our answers, except they haven't called the first district here. There it is. It's stuck on 65%. And it's on 69 here on Decision Desk for some reason. So I'm not sure what the holdup here is in Denver, but they're not counting their votes. Okay, so probably gonna wind this down pretty soon here, actually. Only got 6 people in here. Not a whole lot, but I wanted to get this stream in. You saw CNN YouTube video. Country, one of the residents interviewed questions said the reason he went for Trump was because of Dem social issue positions. Yeah, that's, I guess that does back up what I said. It's anecdotal, but still. You're going to call tonight Bernie Sanders. This race is pretty much done. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to call it too. I've got to get going here myself. And we pretty much got it all in. I'll probably do a results video for tomorrow. Should be pretty easy to do. Again, I don't know when the next stream will be. I got things going on behind the scenes. No idea what's going on, but if possible, a stream would happen. Okay, you agree with Dems on nearly all social issues, but economically, is that all social issues, even no matter how far to the left it is, even the new candidates in New York? Or, I mean, is there any point they could take it where you don't agree with them? Arizona. Oh, is Arizona next week? Oh, no, that says July 21st. Is that correct? Yeah, I thought there was a gap here. So I'm seeing July 21st for Arizona. The big upcoming race is going to be Michigan Senate. That's going to be the big one. That's in August, though. Okay, gotcha. All right, yeah, I think we're probably going to wind this stream down ourselves because it's all pretty much in. We've got Weiser, the nominee, Hickenlooper's the nominee. Looks like Diana DeGette is going to go down here in the first, Rudnell in the eighth, and and Kirkmeyer's in the lead for the Republicans for governor. So I think we're going to kind of call it here again. Not a huge audience this time, but good to get some people in here. Unless anybody has any last minute stuff, throw in a super chat or a super thanks, whatever you've got. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to tell everybody to like, share, and subscribe. Of course, if you haven't done that already, why not? Always good to do another stream here, but this is kind of all we've got for Colorado. So I said at the beginning it's probably not going to be a long one, and it's not. And I love how there's always a random county that has zero. All these other counties, they've got something going on, but one county, zero. Anyway, again, that is going to be it. And oh, okay, last comment in here for economics. You don't find it agreeable by taxing the wealthy, but for sure those are better solutions than taxing the wealthy and lowering taxes for the wealthy. Hmm. You don't agree with taxing the wealthy? I mean, that's kind of the populist position. Increase taxes in that direction, lower the tax burden on lower income earners. But hey, everybody's got their views. We're all just trying to do our thing. And all right, yeah, that is going to be it. I appreciate it. You have a great night as well. And we're going to call this stream. Like, share, subscribe. Appreciate everybody stopping by. This wraps up the Colorado stream. Have a good night, everybody.